Ladies and gentlemen, most people don't realize it, but their biggest enemy isn't out there, it's in their own mind. Every day, countless thoughts pass through your head, and many of them are negative, automatic, and deeply limiting. These thoughts don't shout, they whisper. They tell you you're not good enough, that you'll fail, that it's too late. And the worst part, you start to believe them. You start to live by them. But what if you could catch those thoughts before they take root? What if you could stop them before they sabotage your confidence, your actions, and your future? In this talk, we're going to break down exactly how negative thinking works, how it quietly shapes your behavior, and most importantly, how to shut it down before it destroys your momentum. Because once you understand the power of thought, you'll never look at your inner dialogue the same way again. Let's get into it. Why do some people constantly second-guess themselves, while others seem to draw success effortlessly? The answer isn't talent or luck. It's mindset. If you don't take control of your thoughts, they'll end up controlling you. In this video, you'll learn how to turn your inner critic into a powerful supporter. And at the end, I'll share actionable, life-changing techniques you can start using immediately. Before we dive in, if you're interested in more insights about the power of mindset, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's a small habit that serves your future. When I first heard the phrase, "we become what we think about most of the time," it didn't mean much to me. Back then, I was just doing a regular retail job, nothing fancy, and I thought, that sounds like something from a self-help book, not real life. But over time, I noticed something important. People in the same job, with the same resources, were experiencing completely different outcomes. Some were making real progress, while others remained stuck, despite working just as hard. That's when it clicked. It's not your surroundings that define you. It's the internal story you're telling yourself. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, "I'm not smart enough," or "I never get lucky," or "things just don't work out for me"? These aren't harmless thoughts. They're like anchors, keeping you grounded when you were meant to rise. And if you still think negative thinking is just a passing mood, let me be clear, it's a script, one you're following every single day. And the most surprising part, you didn't even write it. That script was handed to you by a parent, a teacher, a former boss, maybe even a careless comment or a past failure. But here's the truth, you have the ability to rewrite it. I've been there myself. At 25, I had nothing, no money, no clear path forward, and no belief in myself. And down goes a passing thought. And the moment my life slipped into that path once again, my mind bid just debt, frustration, and a habit of complaining. One day, I had a realization. If I kept going the same way, I wouldn't just be financially broke, I'd be emotionally and mentally bankrupt too. That's when I began searching for ways to change my thinking. I started reading, having conversations with people, journaling my thoughts, and most importantly, interrupting negative patterns before they could take hold. Here's the truth, plain and simple. You can change your life, but it starts by changing the way you speak to yourself. Because the most dangerous voices aren't the ones around you. They're the ones you start believing inside, the ones that say it's too late, that you're not capable, that growth isn't possible for you. Let me say this clearly. That is false. The truth is, your mind can be trained to think differently. And I'm going to walk you through that process. In this video, we're not just talking about mindset. We're going to take action. You'll learn hands-on techniques to help you replace limiting beliefs. We'll break down where negative thoughts come from, how to recognize them, and most importantly, how to replace them with empowering thoughts that lift you rather than hold you back. At the end, I'll give you self-assessment questions you can use to evaluate your mindset and choose one area to focus on improving this week. Ask yourself this, do you trust your doubts more than your potential? Because here's something important I've learned. Doubt is a habit, but so is belief. And whichever one you reinforce becomes the foundation of who you are. When we talk about negative thoughts, we're not just talking about feeling down. We're talking about the silent phrases that repeat over and over until they become part of your identity. I call them silent saboteurs. They don't shout, but they're always there. They whisper things like, "Why try? You'll just fail." And the more you listen, the less you act. When you act less, you achieve less. And that lack of progress builds frustration. Before long, you're stuck in a trap you unknowingly built. One of the most powerful lessons I learned early on was this: ask questions. When doubt shows up in your mind, don't argue with it, expose it, question it. Let's say the thought is, I'm not smart enough for this. Ask yourself, where did that come from? Is it even true? Or is it someone else's fear I adopted as my own? Think of your mind like a garden. If you're not planting something helpful, the weeds, negative thoughts, start growing automatically. And the first step to changing your mindset is being able to spot those weeds. The tricky part, negative thoughts sound convincing. They often speak in your own inner voice. They disguise themselves as caution or realism. They say things like, play it safe, or stay where it's comfortable. But let me tell you something. The comfort zone is where dreams slowly fade away. I've seen people sit there for decades. They call it being realistic, but deep down, they aren't fulfilled. Here's your first move. Write down your limiting beliefs. Clearly, honestly, no softening. Phrases like, I'm not worthy of success, or I always mess things up, or nobody really cares about me. And then underneath each one, write, where did this belief come from? Is it something I've actually experienced, or something that was planted in me? That awareness is a game changer. Most people are following mental scripts they've never questioned, but now you can. Next, you replace those beliefs, but not with empty affirmations. Replace them with grounded, truthful statements. If your thought is, I'm not good enough for this, reframe it, I may not have the skill yet, but I can learn and improve. That's not false hope. That's building a new, realistic belief. Don't say I'm useless. Say I have abilities I'm still developing. Don't say I'm unlucky. Say, I create my own chances through action. I use a simple method for this. I call it thought plus action. When a negative thought pops up, I don't just fight it, I follow it with movement. If I think today's going to be tough, I immediately add, but I'll still accomplish one thing that matters. Then I do it. That one step shifts everything. It breaks the spiral of negativity. We can't stop every thought from entering our minds, but we can choose which ones to believe and which to release. One more thing to remember. Don't confuse positive thinking with ignoring reality. It's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about looking directly at the challenge and still choosing to take action. That's not delusion, that's resilience. I've seen people go through incredibly difficult situations and come out stronger, not because they never felt fear or doubt, but because they chose their thoughts with intention every single day. And so can you. And last point, your thoughts are shaped by your surroundings. If you're always around fear, negativity, or complaints, it will rub off on you. But when you start listening to voices that talk about growth, possibility, and effort, your mindset changes, not by accident, by design. Want to shift your thinking? Start by changing what and who you're listening to. They called themselves realists, but they weren't content. Here's the first thing I suggest. Write down your negative beliefs clearly and honestly without softening the truth. Things like, I'm not worthy of success, I always mess things up, or no one truly cares about me. Then, under each belief, ask yourself, where did this come from? Is this based on my actual experience, or was it planted in my mind? Awareness is half the battle. Many people go through life following scripts they've never questioned. They don't realize those thoughts can be challenged. Now comes the second step, replace the belief. But don't swap it for an empty feel-good phrase. Choose a statement that makes logical sense. For instance, if you think, I'm not capable of big things, replace it with, I don't know how yet, but I can learn and grow. That's not pretending, that's selecting a more useful truth. Instead of saying I'm useless, say I have skills I can strengthen. Instead of I'm unlucky, say I create opportunities through steady action. I use a simple method for this. I call it thought plus action. When I catch myself thinking a negative thought, I immediately pair it with an action. If I think today's going to be tough, I add, but I'll still accomplish at least one meaningful thing. And then I do it. That single action helps break the negative cycle. We can't control every thought that enters our minds, but we can choose which ones to hold on to. And here's an important reminder. Don't mistake positive thinking for denying reality. Positive thinking doesn't mean ignoring the facts or pretending things are perfect. It means seeing the challenge clearly and still choosing to believe in the power of action. When you face a tough situation and say, yes, this is hard, but I'll get through it, that's real strength. I've seen many people in difficult situations who refuse to let negativity take over because every day they chose what to focus on. And you can do the same. One more point. Your environment matters. Your thoughts often reflect the voices around you. If you're surrounded by constant complaints, fear, or doubt, it will affect you. But when you tune in to different voices, voices that focus on possibilities and action, your mindset begins to shift. This isn't a trick or manipulation. It's simply what works. If you want to change your mindset, change the information you allow in. I always say, work on yourself more than you work on your job. Your job depends on who you are, and who you are depends on what you think. The choice is yours. The thoughts you feed are the ones that grow. Stay alert, because negativity doesn't announce itself loudly. It slips in quietly, becoming a habit. A phrase like, I'm just the kind of person who always fails. Repeat that often enough, and you start living it. So ask yourself, what negative thought plays most often in your mind, and why are you still holding on to it? And you start to think about who are you still holding on to? Maybe it's time to say enough. Maybe it's time to create a new reality without waiting for the world to change first. You can begin today with one new thought, one small action, and the cycle shifts. When I say everything starts with your mindset, it's not just a phrase. It's the foundation of everything. I've met people who had wealth but carried poor thinking, and they lost it all. I've also seen those with empty pockets but deep inner confidence, and they went on to build great things. Everything you have in the outer world reflects what's happening inside. Until you change the roots, the fruits won't change. One of the most common poisons is the thought, this is just how I am. It may sound like self-acceptance, but more often it's quiet resignation. It's a phrase that closes the door to growth, hiding behind ideas like I can't change or I'm not capable. But I say this, you aren't simply who you are who you've shaped yourself to be. And you can reshape yourself just as I rebuilt myself from a dreamless salesperson to a speaker reaching millions, not because I was special, but because I changed what I believed about myself. And when that belief shifted, my actions followed. Every one of us carries an internal script. It's a set of beliefs that runs on autopilot. Beliefs about what's possible, what's allowed, what isn't for people like me. And most of that script was written when we were young. Maybe someone told you you weren't smart. Maybe someone mocked you. Maybe someone said money isn't for people like us. And you believed it because you were a child, because you trusted. But now it's time to take the pen in your hands and rewrite that script. Real transformation starts with identity. If you keep thinking, I'm the kind of person who never finishes things, your actions will match that. Because the mind looks for consistency between your inner image and your behavior. But if you begin thinking, I'm the kind of person who sees things through, I get back up when I fall, I'm a creator, not a victim, your behavior will start to align, not instantly, but inevitably. That's the power of belief. Now let's talk about what to do in practice. One technique that changed my path was creating a new inner language on purpose. I started writing down the phrases I wanted to become part of my inner dialogue. Statements like, I grow and learn every day. I deserve a fulfilling life, and I have the power to shape my future. I repeated them daily, not like magic spells or wishful thinking, but as a decision, a commitment. Over time, my mind accepted those words as its own. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened. I changed that inner voice, the one that once held me back. It became my supporter. And here's the fascinating part. The world around me started to shift too. People responded to me differently. New opportunities appeared, not because the world changed, but because I did, because I started showing up differently. Another key factor is focus. Our minds work like radar, always scanning. If you're tuned in to negativity or limits, that's exactly what you'll find. If you keep asking, what's wrong, you'll always get an answer. But if you begin asking, what can I do? What is this teaching me? What's good in this situation? Your reality shifts because your focus has shifted. Here's a simple exercise. In the morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for, 3 goals you want to achieve, and 3 actions you'll take today, just 9 lines. But this practice shapes your focus like a compass, and with daily repetition, it creates direction. And direction matters far more than speed. One more enemy of positive thinking is comparison. Social media has only made this worse. People see others' successes and think, I'll never have that, but they don't see the full journey. They don't see the pain, the mistakes, the struggle. So remember this, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. You don't need to be better than anyone else. You only need to be better than you were yesterday, and that's enough. When I first began speaking on stage, I wasn't the most polished or eloquent, but I was real. I didn't share what I'd studied, I shared what I had lived. And people felt that because the most powerful mindset isn't just learned, it's lived. It doesn't simply help you speak, it drives you to act. And when you act from deep conviction rather than fleeting emotion, results follow. So let me ask you, what is your core identity today? Who are you really? Not your job title, your true essence. And is that identity leading you toward the life you want? If not, it's time to change it. And you can start small with a new word, a fresh phrase, a different answer to that old question, who am I? You are not your past mistakes. You are untapped potential. And the moment you embrace that, your actions will begin to reflect it. We've already covered a lot together. We've explored how thoughts shape actions, how identity forms, and how every day gives you a chance to shift your direction. But now comes the moment when reflection must turn into action. Because knowledge without action is like a seed left in your pocket. It holds promise, but it won't bear fruit until you plant it. Let's do a simple exercise, a few minutes that can give you a clear view of where you stand and where to begin. This isn't a test, it's a mirror, and only you can decide how honestly you'll look into it. Picture a scale from 1 to 10. A 1 means you're struggling in that area. A 10 means you're showing up with strength, confidence, and consistency. Grab a piece of paper or open your notes app, and after each question, give yourself a score. Be honest. Only truth leads to strength. Let's begin. How often do you catch yourself in negative thoughts, and can you stop them before they take over your day? How much do you believe in yourself when starting something new? How steady are you emotionally when faced with criticism or setbacks? How disciplined are you in supporting a positive mindset through daily habits like reading, exercise, meditation, or gratitude? Do you feel like the author of your life or just a spectator? How much do you rely on others' opinions? How often do you focus on possibilities rather than problems? How well do you notice and appreciate small wins instead of brushing them aside? Is your environment helping you grow or pulling you back into old patterns? And most importantly, how willing are you to take action even when motivation is low? Now look at your scores. Just observe them. No judgment. You're not aiming for perfection. You're finding your starting point. Because real change doesn't happen by fixing everything at once. It begins with one focus. Identify the area where your score is lowest. That's where your biggest obstacle is hiding. And that's where your attention should go this week. So what's next? Write that area down. Maybe it's self-belief, emotional resilience, or dependence on the opinions of others. Then create a simple plan. Choose one daily action that will help you grow in that area. If it's self-belief, write down 1 win each day, no matter how small. If it's emotional stability, practice pausing before you respond. If your challenge is people-pleasing, remind yourself, I don't hand over control of my life to someone else's words. And above all, keep it simple. 1 action, done repeatedly, small, steady steps. Because it's not huge bursts of effort that transform a life. It's small, consistent effort that doesn't quit. Write your plan for the week right now. Choose the time of day you'll do it. That single decision, simple as it may seem, holds more power than any motivational video because it's yours. Personal, intentional. You can even give your week a name, something like Week of Inner Calm or 7 Days of Self-Belief. Let that name be your flag because the moment you act with intention, life begins to respond. If what I shared today helped you, if it spoke to you, reminded you of something important, or gave you that needed push, just tap like. It's more than a button. It's a signal that these conversations matter. And to make sure you don't miss what's next, hit subscribe. We're only getting started. I also invite you to leave a comment. Share what thought has been holding you back the most, and which one are you ready to replace? This week, I'll read every single comment, and believe me, you have no idea how your story could inspire someone else. Look back on the journey we've taken together over these past few minutes. We started with a thought, maybe one that just yesterday echoed in your mind and pulled you down. We explored beliefs that weren't really yours, ones you picked up along the way. We talked about how to recognize them, how to interrupt them, and how to replace them. This wasn't a conversation about magic. It was about mental habits, about choices, about personal responsibility, about the daily work of becoming who you were meant to be. Because life isn't what happens to us. Life is how we respond to what happens. And thought is the first response. If that thought is strong, your actions will be strong. If that thought is clear and steady, the world around you will begin to reflect that clarity and light. This isn't a promise of instant happiness. It's the law of growth. I've seen people transform not because the world handed them a chance, but because they gave themselves permission to think differently. I've been that person. I knew I couldn't reach new heights with an old mindset, so I started small. I changed the first phrases I allowed into my mind. I cultivated a new inner language, first through effort, then through habit, and over time, it became part of my character. You are not who you were yesterday. You are not who you were a year ago. And you certainly don't have to be who the world led you to believe you are. The most powerful transformation isn't external, it's internal. And it always begins with this decision. I no longer think like a victim. I think like a creator. So when this video ends, don't just scroll to the next one. Pause, grab a sheet of paper, write down your most persistent negative thought, and next to it, write the new one, your new thought, one that opens doors, not one that closes them. Then write down one action you'll take tomorrow and do it not for anyone else, but for yourself. Because you deserve to stand on your own side. And remember this, mental discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. It's inner quiet. When the outside world gets loud, it's what allows you to stand steady in the chaos and still know who you are. It's a strength that doesn't need to shout, but quietly changes everything. And if a day comes when doubt creeps back in, return here. Because I'll always remind you of one thing. You are stronger than you think. And your mind, it isn't your enemy. It can become your greatest ally if you teach it to think in the right way. You don't need to fight the world, you need to win over yourself. And when you do, the world starts to notice. As I often say, work on yourself more than you work on your job. When you grow, everything around you grows too. When negative thoughts take root, they don't just cloud your mind, they quietly shape your actions, your confidence, and ultimately your future. But here's the truth most people overlook. You have the power to interrupt them before they take control. Imagine what could change in your life if you stopped feeding these thoughts and started replacing them with beliefs that build you up instead of break you down. That's exactly what we're diving into today. This isn't about ignoring reality or pretending everything's fine. It's about learning how to recognize the moment those destructive thoughts creep in and having the tools to stop them before they create damage. The ability to master your thinking is one of the most valuable skills you'll ever build because every change you want in your life begins with what happens inside your mind. In this video, you'll discover clear, practical strategies that actually work, not fluffy ideas or empty motivation. We'll break down how to identify toxic thoughts early, how to shift your focus, and how to create daily habits that protect your mindset. You'll see how small mental changes repeated over time can reshape your reality in ways you never imagined. So if you're ready to take back control and build a stronger, clearer mind that serves you instead of limits you,